What is it that you invested thousands of hours and now is pointless? I took 2 years of French instead of Spanish in high school. I live in Texas. I live in Massachusetts, and I still should have taken Spanish instead of French. But at least whenever I go up to Montreal, I can order my food in my terrible French and show everyone I'm an American immediately. Ha, I got one up on both of you. I took Latin. I got an aviation degree because it used to be the only way you could qualify to become an air traffic controller. The age cutoff is 30 and I graduated when I was 29. Well, they decided to restructure the hiring process mere months after I graduated and cancelled all hiring panels for 2 years. I aged out and now have a effing useless degree that I still pay students loans on. Edit. First, thank you for the huge response. This happened about 11 years ago. I am making a lot of money doing something I'll love in another industry, so don't worry about me. It was devastating at the time, but I'm content in what I'm doing now. Had to edit that again because of all the people who are negative about hearing. Everything happens for a reason and living my best life. I'm happy and successful, and if you can't live with that, go be negative somewhere else. To answer the most common question on here, why is 30 the cutoff age? This is a very high stress job that requires you to have a sharp mind at all times. It's like playing a mathematical puzzle that kills 300 people if you F up. They offer encourage retirement with pension at 55, but you need 25 years of service to be eligible, hence the oldest you can be to start the job is 30 years old. I got a BS in biochemistry, then drove a forklift for 14 years. Now I'm an electrician. Whoop whoop. Fellow biochem graduate, I earned $12 an hour in a lab after working in wastewater. I do budgets now. I should have never done that. There were other ways to get to medical school that I clearly couldn't pursue because I did so poorly in the undergraduate degree. Pouring one out for your pain. Eater. Wow. I don't know whether I'm happy not to be alone or incredibly sad knowing that there are so many of us. My best advice for anyone seeking an undergraduate degree in biology, chemistry, biochemistry, etc. is to know you will have to get an advanced degree to make anything in your field. If you love it and are passionate about the subjects, keep on keeping on because they really are fascinating. Cheers to all my fellow scientific dropouts. Somehow we survived. I know all the tricks to make a website look as good in Internet Explorer 6 as in Chrome, Safari, or Opera. I feel your pain. I also know how to make emails look identical across a huge number of clients, which is actually more difficult, yet feels equally pointless. Hey now, before I actually learned the hellscape of Outlook compatibility, our app's emails in that client at best looked like scams, at worst would delete important functionality, links, generated data, etc. So not pointless. That said, writing email compatibility makes me feel like a coding caveman. Sorting and organizing my MP3 collection. F the pain is real. Had to make it easy to find in Winamp. This is the life of a geneticist. The field moves quickly with the technology and techniques, but they are all very complex and difficult to learn. More than once in my life, I have poured myself into a specialized skill to be the best in the building, only to have that skill be obsolete the next year. It never feels that bad, though, because the replacements are almost always faster, easier, and get you better results, or else they don't really take off. My mentor wanted me to take 3 years off residency to go to the States and learn a very special technique of experimental drug delivery. I didn't go. The technique was non-relevant a couple years later. I managed to accidentally wipe the drive that held all my work. I'm a semi-professional game dev. There was 10 years worth of meshes, materials and code. It's been 10 days. I've just been in a sort of state of shock, having tried and failed to recover the lost files. Whoa, I haven't talked to any of my old guildmates in years. I got server first kills and worked my ass off to be the top of my game, and it means next to nothing. I look back on the time I spent fondly and wouldn't trade the experience for anything, but it really does nothing for me. Glad to see this. I was coming out to say it. Although, I quit smoking cigarettes the day I started WoW and I'm currently sitting on 15 years sober as of 8/8, so it wasn't a waste for me, really. And lots of my guildmates are on my FB, and I do have some great memories. Edit. Quit date and day I started. Wow. The 8th of August 2008, not a progression number. I have a bachelor's degree in astronomy from one of the world's best universities. I now work as a software engineer. Nearing the end of my PhD in astrophysics, I have the passion but not the drive or the lifestyle to continue with academia. So I'm almost certainly going to end up as a data scientist or software dev. PhD in astrophysics here. I also ended up as data scientist. Better than regular IT job because of the data, modeling and statistics. Still, solving retailer problems will never compare to learning about the universe. Asian parent piano lessons. Didn't make them happy. Didn't make myself happy. Never got any good at it. Gained no useful skills whatsoever for the several hundred hours per year for multiple years spent practicing. The only joy piano gave me was pointing out to my parents, 40 years later, that I've never touched a piano since they stopped forcing it on me. We always had a piano in our house growing up, but I was never given a lesson. I eventually learned to play in my late 20s and I love it. I wonder if I had been forced, if it would have killed my interest in it. It took me 8 years to get my chemical engineering degree. I never worked a single day as a chemical engineer. I'm a data analyst now. Reminds me of the guy that told me he had paid over $100k for an undergrad chemistry degree, and that the only thing he used it for was his pool. My marriage. The leading cause of divorce is marriage. The statistics are staggering. A record 100% of divorces begin with marriage. Something to think about. Not hours percent, but lots and lots of money. When I was a kid, CDs were king. This was also back when a typical CD was like $16 at Sam Goody etc. I'd mow lawns in my neighborhood 4 houses on a weekend and get $10 each, which was good for about a dozen albums a month. My parents also gave me lunch money for school, $2 a day, which I pocketed for another album a week. So basically I sacrificed nutrition and my weekends for the entirety of my middle school early high school years to build up a massive album collection that was the envy of all my musician friends. It was glorious. I thought for sure this would be the crown jewel of my adulthood and that I would pass them on to my kids someday. And then when the iPod iTunes came out it was all pointless. Lol. I see your point, but I'm sure you discovered some really cool music from it. Plus, you had access to a big library once you could rip CDs. I bought my first CD in a whim cause if a song I heard in the radio and if I had waited to get into music later, I would have missed out on some good tunes in my formative years. Plus, buying CDs supported the bands you liked and helped finance the music scene. It's not all in vain, my dude. I spent over a decade learning how to draw, studying design techniques, etc. Tried to work as a professional designer and illustrator, and it was terrible and made no money. Now I'm a software developer. Every once in a blue moon it's useful for making graphics, but really just pointless. I'm an engineer. We're not exactly known for our artistic inclinations. Lol. But we do use figures and sketches a lot to convey ideas. Most of us do fine with our chicken scratch diagrams during meetings. But I had one boss who was at a whole other level. He could draw clear, neat isometric views of things, upside down so that the person sitting across the table from him could see it. It didn't exactly make him elite, but it sure did help with communicating his ideas. I love discovering various little superpowers that my co-workers have. I spent half my army career in various schools learning to repair nuclear missiles. Now I'm doing desktop support and teaching the new guys how to install printers remotely. If one of the new guys gets pissed off at a printer and launches it across the room, you can teach them how to fix it. You may get charged with a horrific crime, and rather than face a trial and imprisonment you flee to a third world country. That country's dictator may trade you protection from extradition in exchange to maintain their recently acquired black market nukes. RuneScape, but it's been pointless since day one. My friend just 99'd every skill on Iron Man. Unbelievable waste of time. What do you mean waste of time? Now he can play the game. Minecraft. From 2011 to probably 2018 to 2019 it was like my go-to depression game. When my depression got bad, some days I'd play for 12 hours. Built a whole huge city with districts, multiple tall buildings, rail system, a mob zoo, etc. I kinda miss it sometimes. It may be pointless, but if it got you through the day, then I consider it useful. Take care of yourself, even if it includes a couple hours of coping. Indigenous knotting. I used to be able to make the most beautiful dresses, armors, and regalia using traditional knotting and beading techniques. Broke my arm about a decade ago, got fat, and got arthritis. Now my hands don't even work well enough to teach the next generation how to do it. I do beadwork, very, very poorly, but I do it. As I've learned how to do it, I've learned there is going to be next to no reason if I'm never better than now. I've never even finished a piece. Why I keep doing it? That's another whole generation down that my ancestors made, before our bloodline stopped beading. My dad taught me, my aunt taught him, my grandma taught my aunt. I can teach my kids, and they may absolutely suck too. But that's another generation down that we weren't extinguished. I feel proud knowing what my great grandpa went through in the residential schools, that even though our language is next to lost, we still have something passing down. I'm ass at beading. Me and my dad have both never completed a piece, but my dad made me by beading piece and he got my grandma's. That itself serves a purpose to me. Don't think of it as lost. Think of it as another generation forward. I worked in high tech for 40-ish years. Almost everything I learned became obsolete. It's a treadmill. At least you got a 40-year-long career out of it. The rest of us are like 5-10 with over $100K in student loans. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 30 years. Average of 15 hours a month knocking on doors. Preaching Armageddon that never will come. Free for 23 years now. Good for you. My mom left the church at 18 and never looked back. Religious trauma is no effing joke. I played around 12k hours of soccer. Got pretty good at it, but it didn't work out. So now I'm an engineer that secretly can play soccer at professional level. I was an extremely competitive, national level swimmer who ended up retiring freshman year of college due to injuries and chronic fatigue. I do not consider that time wasted in the slightest. Life is about collecting experiences, and there are still many skills from that time that help me today. I am still athletic and swim laps for fitness, and I've been getting more into weights. I can free dive once or twice a year and have a great time with my BF who does scuba. I have a mermaid tail and want to get into more mermaid swimming. Lol. Being a strong swimmer is never a wasted skill, and achieving a higher level in any sport will translate into success in other areas of your life. When I was 20, I got a job at an up-and-coming tech company. 6 months later they went IPO in a big way, and I was worth $2 million on paper. 6 months later the market crashed and the stock tanked. Before I was legally allowed to touch the shares, I read a profile in Wired years ago about some 20-something kid who was a zillionaire on paper. He personally owned the URL, business.com, back when URLs were the hotness. He was offered $400 million for the URL and turned it down. Then tech crashed, his company burned, and he was literally flipping burgers riding out the shareholder suits. Prepping. If nothing apocalyptic ever happens, all my prepper friends can't cook. Invest time in cooking, preparing food, smoking, and grilling. It will not be wasted time. And, if you ever need to cook without electricity, you'll be the king. I watched a prepper show and saw their bunker, and we can feed 120 people for 6 months with what we have down here. Me with 2 decades of cooking experience. Not with that electric 4-burner. You're not. My PhD. It's effing worthless and I'm done with academia. Now I work in a corp mindlessly, filling Excel spreadsheets for twice the money I was paid, and I've never been happier in my entire life. Edit. I've got PhD in STEM. Still it's effing worthless cause nobody is hiring out here and I don't have some crucial skills to move abroad and get a decent job. I'm sick of working overtime for free. Dean's stupid policies. Falsifying results. I got a notification on LinkedIn that a financial corp is opening new branch in my city. I applied for junior data analyst, but honestly all I do is filling Excel spreadsheets, making bar charts and reporting anything unusual. This is my dream. I am hopelessly burned out on the master's degree. That will not end, and I have zero interest in pursuing the traditional academia path any farther, but I effing love filling out spreadsheets. self-development books, psychology books, and biographies to find out what the F is wrong with me. One 30-second information video about ADHD changed my life. The clouds parted. I'm now on medication and living the life I wanted to create for myself by taking a simple pill every morning. It took 37 years, but I'm now the person I felt was locked in there since I was a child. I'm so happy I could cry. Well, almost. I still haven't cracked the code on that one, but I'm pretty damn happy. Not to mention a better husband, father and worker. Edit. The TikTok video in question just made me curious about ADHD. It basically said, "Hello, you're probably seeing this because the algorithm thinks you have ADHD. Look at my channel for more." I scoffed because I thought ADHD was something completely different, but I checked the channel out. There was this doctor, I think, listing signs and symptoms of ADHD. The videos made me curious enough to learn more about ADHD, so I took some online tests and read a little about it before contacting my doctor to get a proper diagnosis. I can't find the video itself. I deleted TikTok a long time ago. Edit 2. If you suspect having ADHD, please get a medical professional's opinion. Do not self-diagnose. Tip: do a little research on your own beforehand and make a list of the things you have problems with in life that you think can be traced to ADHD. It makes the doctor or psychologist's job easier and might speed up the process. It could be things like not being able to hold a job, pay bills on time, stay in relationships, blowing money on new hobbies every month, not being able to study, lack of impulse control, and a lot more. There is a lot of different types of ADHD. It's a specter. You can also have ADHD traits without having enough of them to get a diagnosis. Overwatch. I stuck with it for a long time with hopes of OW2 pure PvE gaming fueling me. Then OW2 dropped without its PvE, and now they cancelled PvE altogether. And the battle pass sucks butt, so the PvP doesn't even have anything left either. I built a customer service team from the ground up to support a client's new product. Became the highest rated customer service group in the entire business. One day our phones went dead. Called to test the line. Was routed to a different customer service team. We'd been outsourced and they didn't have the heart to tell us in advance. Art. I used to draw multiple hours almost every day. It didn't go anywhere unfortunately, and my skill level was not that high, to put it mildly. Did you enjoy it? Because, in the end, that's what matters. I'm an artist. Pretty good. I've made a living doing illustration and design work. But, I'm not a top tier talent by any means. But, I still enjoy what I do for myself, even if I no longer try to make a living from it. Currently having fun doing painting of Lovecraftian abominations. At the end of the 90s, I decided to digitize my entire DVD collection into MP4s. I had more than 1,000 titles. I had a computer specially dedicated to this task, at the rate of 1 DVD every night. I remembered to do it. I burned through 3 different disk drives. It took me 4 years to finish. Now, everything is streaming in HD or 4K on your phone. Anybody interested in a 720p interlaced copy of Octopussy? Didn't think so. Put that shit on a Plex server and stream all your shit for free. 720 ain't bad, especially on mobile devices. In the 90s, my brother worked as fire watcher in Minnesota near the border. He lived in some remote location. Power but no phone. They cached his supplies for several months. Then nothing. Half starved, he finally came out of the woods to see what was what. He'd been laid off. No one told him. No money in his account. Everybody was laid off and gone. Office dark. That ought to be the kind of job where checking in fairly frequently should be expected. No phone, but surely equipped with a radio? Forest fires aren't fought alone. You don't realize how hard it was to invest 1k in Bitcoin in 2010. You had to do a shady wire transfer to an exchange that went bankrupt. Then you would have had to not left it on said exchange, put it in an offline wallet, then not have the hard drive blow out, then not let the hard drive go to a landfill erroneously. Thousands of hours and still counting. Cursive. I'm pretty sure my graduating class was the last ones to learn it, and now it's unironically the only way I know how to write, as my print looks horrible. But now I gotta sit there and translate it out to other people who don't know how to, which is nice and a pain in itself at the same time. I studied graphic design at a time when the industry was just adopting Illustrator and Photoshop. The schools, however, weren't. I learned so much about paste up and how to use a copy machine to get the very most out of it, and calculating percentages for enlarging, reducing and inking with French curves and waxing a block of text to lead it by hand, and, oh god, so much pain in the ass hand-drawn, hand-cut elements that were immediately rendered useless as soon as I got my first job. Sometimes I miss it, then I remember pasting up whole paragraphs of text and remember that I don't. Actually, I have really good crafting skills though. Horses, especially the husbandry aspect, 20+ years. I still love them dearly and will take care of my current guy until he passes. He might easily live another 15-20 years, but it's also exhausting and time consuming and heartbreaking sometimes. My first horse was the love of my life, and she went blind in her prime years. So it was slow and painful. Current horse is healthy, but he had an extended behavioral episode out of nowhere. No diagnosis after seeing multiple specialists. He's fine now, and I'm glad, but it was the final nail in the coffin for me. Owning a horse is expensive. Riding the damn horse is even more expensive. I haven't ridden in years, and global warming is making it all more and more unpleasant each year. Maybe I'll rediscover the passion one day, as it's a huge part of my life and identity, but I wouldn't do it again. Ever. It's also next to impossible to make money in this field. I thought it would be a retirement thing for me, or even a second job, but forget it. Being a musician. No regrets really, but I definitely did not have the hustle or look to make any money at it. Also, really did hate the nasty folks that would just hate you for being good. It's lonely at the top. Then someone who is a prodigy brings home the reality that if you don't have the resources or luck to really make it, it's just not worth the 50.00 a gig. I also was just depressed getting into being pro and realizing just how much talent is actually out there. Watched a girl who could sing better than anyone I've ever heard lose out on a life-changing gig because she was not the right look. The cards have to be right. Talent is not wasted, but it's really hard to make a living at it. Go to be a gambler. Now I haven't played in years. Miss it. Drafting. 3 years in high school plus summers in preparation for architecture school. That lasted one 10-week term before switching to history. It turns out I enjoyed the software side of CAD, because I now work with digital humanities and online collections of materials.